My name is Caleb Morgan. I'm 38, and until last year, I would have sworn my marriage was built on steady ground routine church on Sundays, 2 kids who run into my arms when I come home from work. My wife Claire is 35. We met at a volunteer event, fell fast, and made promises we meant. For the first 8 years, the picture mostly held. Then the edges started fraying in ways I couldn't quite name. It began with silence. Not the comfortable kind you share after a long day, but the silence of a door half closed. When I asked what was wrong, she'd say nothing without looking up. When I suggested date night, she'd say she was tired. When I offered to book counseling, she got defensive, said I was implying she was the problem. I reminded her we were a team. She said she didn't want to discuss it. The conversation ended there again and again until my questions felt like pebbles thrown into a well with no echo. I tried everything I knew to try. I took the kids to the park so she could rest. I planned a weekend away. I took on the errands she used to handle and tried to be gentler in disagreements. Nothing moved the needle. She was still a good mom, but shorter-tempered, quicker to snap, quicker to walk out of the room. And beneath it all, there was the unmistakable hum of detachment. She wasn't here even when she was standing 2 feet from me. The answer arrived in pieces. The new attention to her makeup, not for church or a family dinner, but for errands. The perfume that lingered on her coat long after midnight. The phone flipped face down, the sudden baths before bed, the new password she never mentioned changing. I told myself to stop being paranoid. Then my gut replied with a truth I didn't want to hear: there was someone else. I fought that thought for weeks. I inventoried my flaws, looking for the thing that would make this my fault. I couldn't find it. I'm not perfect, but I show up. I coach our son's soccer team, I cook on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I tell her when I'm wrong. If there was a missing piece, she wouldn't identify it. Every attempt to talk hit the same brick wall. The night it finally snapped into focus, Claire came downstairs wearing a dress I hadn't seen in years. Not fancy, just fitted in a way that said date more than groceries. She said she was meeting a friend and kissed our daughter on the forehead. When the door closed, the house felt like a room where someone has just lied and the air hasn't cleared yet. I strapped the kids into my car and drove. Our road runs straight toward the city, a long corridor of taillights. I kept 2 cars back. Claire is not a careful driver. The odds of her checking her mirrors were low. Dusk helped. 20 minutes later, she turned into a quiet neighborhood, parked, and walked up to a door that opened before she knocked. I didn't see a face, just a forearm and a hand. It looked like a man's, the way a coach's arm looks lean tan a simple watch. They stepped inside. The porch light clicked off. I waited 30 minutes, then took the kids for ice cream because I couldn't explain why their father was sitting in a dark car, staring at a stranger's house. When Claire returned home later, I asked where she'd been. With a friend, she said, rummaging in the pantry. Who, she didn't answer. I asked again. You don't know her? She replied flat as a wall. That was the moment I accepted what I'd been avoiding. I wasn't going to trail her again with the kids in the back seat. I needed proof, not guesses. The next morning, I called a private investigator whose reviews made him sound like a mechanic for broken marriages. Calm, methodical, unsentimental. In his office, I laid out the timeline. He listened without interrupting, took a few notes, and told me he doesn't predict outcomes. But your instincts aren't unreasonable, he said. If you want clarity, we can find it. We set a plan, targeted hours on the days. Claire had flexible evenings, Friday through Sunday, with a few weekday afternoons to cover quick catch-ups after work. It wasn't cheap, but neither is living with a ghost. I signed the retainer and drove home, feeling like I'd placed my heart in a safety deposit box and kept only the claim ticket. Waiting was the hardest part. I went through the motions, packed lunches, answered work emails, cheered at our son's game while carrying a quiet countdown inside me. Claire acted lighter, almost cheerful. She hummed while folding towels. She asked if I wanted anything from the store and brought me my favorite tea without comment. Part of me wanted to believe she was coming back to us. Another part suspected the sweetness had a deadline. Thanksgiving was approaching, and her family's gathering is the one event of the year she treats as sacred. I had told her I wasn't going this time. She pressed hard. "It will look bad if you don't show," she said, then caught herself and added for the kids. 3 days before the holiday, the PI called. His tone was clinical. He had photographs of Claire at the beach with a man in his late 20s. Nothing explicit, he said, but unmistakably intimate sunscreen, applied gently on shoulders, her head resting on his chest, the familiar ease of two people who know how to be close. Another day, he followed them from downtown to a deserted parking lot at the old mill. He didn't describe anything I wouldn't want to hear. He didn't need to. The details were enough long minutes in a parked car, garments adjusted before exiting, faces visible in the glass when they straightened their clothes. The man's name, he added, was Tyler Brooks. Married. No children. "Are you sure about married?" I asked, thinking of the house I'd followed Claire to weeks earlier. "Positive," he said, and gave me an address that matched the street I had scribbled on the back of a receipt. He couldn't explain why Claire had been able to visit Tyler's home. Schedules, he said, travel, gaps. It happens. Something inside me softened and hardened at the same time. The softness was grief for the life I thought I had. The hardness was resolve. I thanked the investigator, wired the remainder of his fee, and asked him to package the evidence in a format a judge would respect and a person could not deny. He said he already had. I didn't confront Claire that night. There are conversations that release pain and conversations that waste it. I decided not to spend a single ounce on words that would be deflected or minimized. Instead, I called a family lawyer a friend recommended. We talked terms, timelines, custody, the likely split of assets. He told me what documents to gather and which emotions to set aside. "You'll want to act, not react," he said. I wrote that down. When Claire asked again whether I'd attend Thanksgiving, I said I would. Her relief arrived too fast, like someone exhaling after holding in a secret. "Thank you," she said, touching my arm as if we were a team planning a surprise. I smiled because in a way we were. My plan was simple. I would not raise my voice. I would not accuse. I would not trade insults across a table set for gratitude. I would answer questions honestly. If anyone with a phone wanted to see the truth, I would share it. I would not be theatrical for my sake, but I would be clear for theirs. Claire wanted our family to see a united front. I wanted them to see what unity means when one person decides to step away. 2 nights before the dinner, I backed up our family photos and my financial records to a private drive. I printed the lawyer's intake forms. I put the PI's file in a folder and slid it into my briefcase. I slept for the first time in weeks without dreaming. On Thanksgiving morning, Claire woke early to bake her mother's rolls. She hummed the same old tune. The kids ran around in dress shoes. I tied our son's tie and told our daughter her braid looked perfect. In the mirror, I looked like a man going to an ordinary meal. Inside, I felt like a man carrying a verdict he didn't ask to render, but would deliver all the same. Thanksgiving morning arrived like a stage light turning on. Claire moved through the house humming again that same tune from the early days when we were still happy. She was radiant in her favorite autumn dress, carefully curling her hair, setting the table for her family's annual dinner as if nothing in the world was wrong. The irony wasn't lost on me. She wanted this day to be perfect because to her perfection meant control, and she was about to lose all of it. I helped the kids into their coats, packed the side dishes she'd prepared, and loaded the car. She smiled at me like everything was fine. "Thank you for coming, Cal," she said. Her voice was soft, practiced. I nodded, masking the calm anger that had become second nature. "Wouldn't miss it," I said. The drive to her parents' house felt longer than usual. The kids chattered in the back seat, arguing about who got to press the radio buttons. Claire rested her hand lightly on my arm as though testing if I would pull away. I didn't. The contact meant nothing. It was just another part of her show. When we arrived, her mother greeted us with hugs and the scent of cinnamon. The family's house looked the same, polished wood floors, old photos, the familiar noise of cousins running around. For a moment, I almost forgot what I had planned. But then I saw the phone in my pocket, the folder in my car, and remembered exactly why I was there. Everyone adored Claire. She was the golden daughter, the organized one, the mother of 2 perfect kids, the wife with the stable husband. They looked at us and saw a success story. I suppose that's what made my role that day so easy. Nobody would see it coming. Dinner started well enough. Small talk about work school and the kids' soccer season filled the air. Claire laughed easily, touching my hand every so often to sell the image of domestic bliss. Her parents beamed, clearly proud. Then came the inevitable moment when her aunt, the self-proclaimed family therapist, asked how the 2 lovebirds were doing. "We're doing great," Claire said immediately, flashing her smile. "Things have been so good lately, haven't they, Cal?" I looked up from my plate, calm as a winter pond. "Sure," I said. "Aside from your affair, everything's been just fine." The words slipped into the room like a drop of ink in clear water. At first, no one moved. Then the silence fractured into sharp breaths, whispers, and the clinking of silverware hitting plates. Claire's head snapped toward me, her face frozen in disbelief. "What did you just say?" she demanded. "I said everything's fine except for your affair," I repeated evenly. "You wanted me to come, Claire. So here I am. Being honest." Her aunt blinked, not sure whether to laugh or gasp. "Caleb," she said carefully, "that's a serious accusation." "Oh, I know," I replied. "That's why I brought proof." Claire's composure cracked. "You're out of your mind," she shouted. "You're lying in front of my family." I turned to the table. "Anyone here have an iPhone?" A few raised their hands. "Good," I said. "Turn on AirDrop." Within seconds, the room filled with the quiet buzz of incoming files. The video the private investigator had captured Claire and a man named Tyler at the beach, later stepping out of his car together, smiling as if they hadn't destroyed 2 families. One by one, the reactions shifted from confusion to disgust. Gasps, murmurs, the kind of silence that makes your pulse audible. Her father's jaw clenched. Her mother covered her mouth, tears forming. Claire, pale as paper, gripped the table's edge. How could you?" I cut her off, still calm. "You wanted to look like the perfect wife today. You wanted to keep up appearances. But appearances don't mean much when they're built on lies." "Caleb, stop," she snapped. "You're humiliating me." "No," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." She stormed away from the table, nearly tripping over a chair. 2 of her relatives followed. The room was left in a stunned quiet, save for the ticking of the clock and the faint buzz of phones still in people's hands. After a long pause, her uncle muttered, "Well, guess that's one way to carve the turkey." A few awkward laughs escaped around the room, half nerves, half disbelief. I stayed seated for a moment longer, then pushed my plate aside. "I think I've lost my appetite," I said. Her father looked at me with weary eyes. "Son, I'm sorry." "Don't be," I said. "You didn't do this." When I stood, half the family started whispering again. Some wanted details. Others told me I shouldn't have aired it out publicly. But the truth was, I hadn't done it for them. I'd done it for her, so that she could finally see what it felt like to live under the same kind of silent humiliation she'd been feeding me for a year. I walked out before dessert. The drive home was heavy. The kids had fallen asleep in the back seat, unaware of the chaos that had just unfolded. Claire sat beside me in silence, staring out the window. She didn't say a word. I could feel the tension in her shoulders, the anger simmering just below the surface. When we got home, I tucked the kids into bed. Then, as I poured myself a drink, she finally spoke. "When did you find out?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, almost brittle. "Does it matter?" I said. She took a step closer. "You could have just talked to me." I laughed once, not cruelly, but out of disbelief. "Talk to you? You stopped listening a year ago, Claire. I tried talking. You built walls. So I brought them down. You embarrassed me in front of my whole family," she shouted, tears of rage in her eyes. "You embarrassed yourself," I said. "I just stopped protecting your lie." She went silent then. Her face shifted from fury to something colder, shame. "I already called the lawyer," I said quietly. "You'll be served in the morning." For a long time, she didn't speak. Then finally, she whispered, "I never thought you had it in you." I looked her straight in the eye. "You never really looked at me, Claire. Not for a long time." She turned and walked upstairs without another word. I stood there alone in the kitchen, the faint smell of turkey still lingering, and felt something I hadn't felt in months, peace. Not joy, not victory, just peace. The next morning when the doorbell rang and the divorce papers arrived, she didn't cry. She just nodded, signed them, and went upstairs again. While she was in the shower, I picked up her phone, found Tyler's number, and sent one message to his wife. "You deserve to know the truth. Your husband's been seeing mine." Then I put the phone down, took a breath, and walked out into the crisp morning air. The truth was finally out. Thanksgiving had done its job. The morning after Thanksgiving felt eerily quiet. The house once filled with the smell of turkey and cinnamon candles now smelled like old smoke and regret. Claire barely came out of the bedroom. I made breakfast for the kids, keeping my tone light, pretending things were normal. But even they could sense the shift. My daughter asked, "Dad, is Mom sick?" I hesitated, then said softly, "She just needs some time to think." It wasn't a lie, not exactly. The divorce papers had been signed. I didn't need to see her signature to know it was over, the distance in her eyes. Said enough. There was no shouting, no pleading, no final speech about love or forgiveness. Just two people who had stopped being us a long time ago. I'd already contacted my lawyer. Everything was in motion. The property split was predictable. She'd keep the house, I'd handle support, and we'd share custody. It was all standard, cold, and legal. But the real sentence was something no court could issue her family's silence. 2 days later, I got a call from her cousin who'd been at the dinner. "Caleb," she said, "I'm sorry for what happened, but you should know Claire hasn't spoken to anyone since." I didn't respond at first. She continued, "Her parents are devastated. Her mom cried all through church on Sunday." I pictured it. The same people who once praised Claire for being the perfect daughter now couldn't even look at her, and for once she couldn't spin her way out. The truth had done what years of arguing never could. It shattered her image. I didn't take pleasure in her pain, not exactly. But I won't lie, it felt like justice. For months, I had been the invisible man in my own home, walking on eggshells around a woman who looked at me like I was an obligation. Now the world finally saw what I'd been living with. Later that week, I heard from another relative that Claire's affair partner, Tyler, had his own explosion to deal with. His wife had received the message I sent and confronted him at their doorstep in front of neighbors, no less. She threw his suitcase onto the lawn. There was shouting, then police lights. Someone caught part of it on a phone, and word spread fast. I didn't need to see it. The description alone was enough. The web Claire and Tyler had spun together collapsed in public. They weren't star-crossed lovers anymore. They were two people exposed under bright light, trying to crawl away from the mess they made. When Claire returned home that night, her face was pale, her eyes red. "You told her, didn't you?" she asked quietly. "Told who?" I replied, though I already knew what she meant. Tyler's wife. I didn't deny it. She deserved to know, I said simply. Claire let out a sharp breath, half shock, half fury. "You ruined everything." I looked at her steady. "No, Claire, you did. I just stopped covering it up." That was the last conversation we ever really had. After that, our communication became purely logistical: school pickups, custody schedules, doctor appointments. She avoided me whenever possible, and when she couldn't, her words were clipped mechanical. The woman who once had opinions about everything now spoke only in practicalities. It was strange to see how fast pride can turn into silence. As the weeks went on, I started noticing small changes. My appetite came back. The house felt cleaner, lighter. The kids began laughing again. They didn't know all the details, but they sensed something had lifted. On weekends, I took them to the park, built Lego castles, cooked pancakes. It was ordinary life, but ordinary had never felt so peaceful. The legal process dragged on, as these things do, but eventually the divorce was finalized. The settlement came through without surprises. Half of our savings went to her. The judge approved shared custody. I was ordered to pay support, and I did without complaint. Freedom has a price, and I paid it gladly. When it was all done, I sat in my car outside the courthouse for a long while, just breathing. There was no dramatic celebration, no cinematic closure, just a quiet realization I was free. Not just from her betrayal, but from the slow erosion of myself that came before it. I had spent a year trying to fix a woman who had already decided to leave me emotionally. Now the silence wasn't painful anymore. It was peaceful. I later heard through a mutual friend that Claire had stopped visiting her parents entirely. They were religious people proud of their family's reputation. Her father, a man of few words, reportedly told her, "You've brought shame to this house." She didn't fight back, she just left. For someone who once lived off validation, being cut off from approval was worse than any punishment I could have designed. At some point, she tried reaching out. Not to apologize, but to negotiate little things like swapping holidays or adjusting pickup times. Her messages were polite but hollow. The warmth was gone. It was like she was trying to rebuild something that had already burned down. I replied with short civil answers. The truth was, I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. I felt nothing. One afternoon, while dropping off the kids, she lingered by the door. "Do you ever think we could have fixed it?" she asked. I paused. "No," I said softly. "You can't fix something that one person stopped believing in." She looked down, eyes glistening, then nodded. "I guess I just didn't think you'd ever give up on me." I met her gaze. "That's the problem, Claire. You thought I never would." Then I walked away. It's been months since then. I've built new routines, early jogs, coffee before sunrise, quiet evenings with books instead of arguments. I'm learning that peace doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from surviving it and realizing you're still whole. Every Thanksgiving since I host my own small dinner. Nothing fancy, just me, the kids, and a few close friends. We go around the table and say what we're grateful for. Last year, my son said, "I'm thankful Dad makes the best mashed potatoes." My daughter said, "I'm thankful we laugh more now." When it was my turn, I thought for a long moment. Then I said, "I'm thankful for the truth." Because that's what set me free, not revenge, not payback, but the truth. The kind that doesn't need to shout. The kind that sits quietly at a dinner table and changes everything. Claire's world collapsed in one night, but mine began again in silence. And as strange as it sounds, I'm grateful for it. I learned that sometimes the most powerful justice isn't fury, it's exposure, letting deceit crumble under its own weight. And as for Claire, I don't know where she is now. Maybe still trying to rebuild her image, maybe trying to forget. But every year when the leaves turn and Thanksgiving rolls around, I hope she remembers that night, the family, the silence, the truth. Because for me, that's the day I stopped being her husband and started being myself again. Here's the next story. I'm Miles Bennett, 38. I'm the guy who checks the propane, tightens the tent lines, and keeps the first aid kits stocked. My fiancée, Lila Hart, 35, believes life should be presentable. She irons hiking shirts and arranges campfire selfies. 8 years together, 2 engaged weddings sometime soon. Lately, that promise felt like a picture we'd stopped updating. The mountain weekend was her idea, our annual couples retreat. We set up near a glassy lake ringed with pines. Adrian Cole arrived in spotless boots and a new jacket. Zara, Lila's best friend, brought a cooler and that look she gets when she's hunting for drama. Her boyfriend Trevor napped in a chair. Jonah and Elise hovered at the edge. By dusk, the fire popped and the sky was full of stars and unsaid things. Zara clapped. Truth or dare, we were adults, but the group cheered like seniors after prom. "Play along," Lila said. "It'll be fun." Fun is the word people use when they're ignoring the bill. The early rounds were harmless. Trevor admitted to cheating on a test once. Jonah confessed he dated his brother's ex. Then Zara turned predatory. "Truth or dare, Hart." "Truth," Lila said. "If you could pick any man here besides your fiancé, who would it be?" The fire cracked. The question sounded like a joke. The silence didn't. Lila didn't look at me. She looked at Adrian. "Him," she said. A few people laughed too loud. Adrian smiled the way men smile when attention feels like promotion. My bottle felt heavy. Lila patted my sleeve. It's just a game, Miles. Don't be so serious. Right, I said, standing. Bathroom. I walked into the line of trees until the voices blurred. I leaned on a trunk and told my heartbeat to quiet down. Footsteps on needles, 2 sets. He's probably sulking by the water, Adrian said low. He's not uptight, Lila said, but there wasn't any weight in it. They stopped close enough that I smelled her perfume braided with his cologne. Lila's hands slid up his chest like choreography. Adrian bent as if he'd practiced the move. They kissed. Not a dare, not a joke, the kind of kiss that assumes permission. I didn't step out. I learned how still a man can be while the floor plan of his life redraws itself. We should go back, Lila whispered. Yeah, Adrian said, I know. They walked away like 2 people who had just agreed on something dangerous. I waited until my hands calmed, then returned to the fire. Lila looked up, eyes soft with concern. There you are, she said. Whose turn, I asked, sitting. I laughed in the right places, then drifted to the tent with the rest. Lila slid into our sleeping bag, smelling like smoke and adrenaline. She slept. I stared at the nylon ceiling, counting the sentences I wouldn't say. At dawn, I said I was sick. Something I ate. I packed the truck. Lila kissed my cheek without really seeing me. Feel better? She said, laughing at something Adrian added from across the fire. 3 hours of highway-delivered clarity. Guessing was over. If the future was going to change, I would change it with my eyes open. Damon Reyes works out of a converted garage behind a small bungalow on the unfashionable side of town. We used to wear uniforms that sent us toward trouble. Now he is a licensed investigator with labeled shoeboxes and humming monitors. Miles Bennett, he said without turning. Time travel or trouble? Trouble, I said. I need eyes on my fiancée. Her friend group. One man in particular, Adrian Cole. Damon swiveled and took in my face like a triage nurse. How bad? Bad enough that I want facts before I talk. He named a price that made me think about the emergency fund. I nodded. He asked for routines, plates, workplaces, gym schedules. I gave him everything and left him to his screens. On the drive home, I rehearsed 2 versions of the night. Version A, confrontation accusations, a kitchen explosion no one could take back. Version B, patience proof, then a scalpel instead of a hammer. I picked B. Cold is not cruel when the point is clarity. Lila stayed in the mountains an extra day. Texts arrived like weather reports. Miss U Ridge Trail was gorgeous. Zara almost fell in. Back tomorrow. I replied with thumbs ups and hearts. I boiled pasta, ate 2 bites, threw the rest away, and started a legal pad. At the top in block letters, rules, no shouting, no public scenes, no damage I can't explain to a judge. Then goal, truth first, consequences steady. She came home Sunday with a glow that didn't belong to altitude. She made my favorite dinner and asked about my stomach like she was checking a chart. You look better, she said, touching my hair. How was the rest of the trip? Oh, you know cards, campfire. Adrian asked about you. Felt bad you left. She said it lightly and took her phone into the shower, a new habit. Monday looked normal if you squinted. I visited job sites. She posted a filtered lake photo with a caption about gratitude. I forwarded it to Damon. Timestamps and faces are data. Tuesday night, while she caught up on freelance, I sat at the table and refined my rules. Speak once, not twice. Ask questions I already know the answers to. Keep my hands clean. Then I added a final line. When it's time, do it cleanly. On Wednesday, my phone buzzed during dinner prep. A text from Damon, preliminary pattern forming. More tomorrow. I set the phone face down and watched Lila stir sauce. It struck me that comfort can be a costume. Lila arranges surfaces. I maintain structures. We were about to learn which skill survives wind. We ate. She told a story about office politics. I nodded. After dishes, she scrolled on the couch phone face down. I reminded myself not tonight. Patience is part of the plan. I slept badly and woke with a steadier spine. Whatever Damon sent next would decide my approach. I wasn't hoping to be wrong anymore. Hope is a kind of delay. I wanted the truth unvarnished with timestamps. Before work, I wrote one more sentence on the pad underlined twice. If betrayal is public, the answer must be precise. Then I folded the page and slid it under my watch in the dresser, a pact with the man I still wanted to be when this was over. By Friday morning, Damon called. His voice was clipped all business. You'd better come by. The garage office smelled of stale coffee and hot circuits. Damon spun his laptop toward me. You were right, but it's worse than you think. On screen, a folder labeled Heart Case. Inside, timestamps, screenshots, statements. First tab, Adrian Cole, entrepreneur, innovator. Reality startup sinking fast, investors threatening to pull out multiple unpaid loans, charm masking desperation. Second tab, Lila Hart credit card transactions at boutique hotels she'd never mentioned to at the same chain where Adrian's receipts appeared. Late-night food deliveries at 1:00 a.m., 2 meals each time. She said she was doing design work, I murmured. Damon didn't answer. Third tab stopped me cold, a side account. A new username, anonymous but obvious. Thousands of followers, suggestive captions. Your fiancé's running a private page, Damon said flatly. Photo sets, chat streams. She's been earning off it for 6 months. Adrian started showing up in the posts about 6 weeks ago. The room felt smaller. I stared at her smile on screen, the same one she wore at dinner when she asked about my day. How long have you known, I asked. Since the upload logs came in? And I found more texts between her and Zara. Damon scrolled, life's too short to stay stuck. He'll never know if you're smart. Another Adrian's totally into you. I can cover if you need an alibi. It wasn't just betrayal, it was choreography. I closed the laptop. How much do I owe you? Damon named a number that stung less than what I'd just seen. Keep digging, I said. I want everything Zara Trevor, all of them. He frowned. You sure you want to go that far? She made it public, I said. I'll finish it public. Driving home, I replayed the campfire kiss in my head, but now every image had captions, timestamps, transaction IDs, usernames. There's something steady about rage when you let it breathe. It organizes itself like blueprints. At home, Lila was humming barefoot in the kitchen, hair up the picture of domestic calm. Hey, you're early, she said. Want me to reheat lunch? No thanks. She studied my face, cautious. Everything okay? Fine, I said, and smiled the way a man smiles at a wire he's already cut the power from. That night, while she scrolled beside me on the couch, I typed a message to Damon Start, recording everything. Saturday morning, I woke before her and brewed coffee just to have something steady in my hands. My phone buzzed a new report from Damon. Adrian's business accounts frozen pending audit. One investor suing for breach. Perfect, I whispered. Lila patted downstairs, robe tied loosely. Morning, she said, yawning. You're up early. Deadlines, I said. Need to get ahead. She poured herself coffee, scrolling with the other hand. Zara texted me this morning, she said casually. She and Trevor might drop by later. Great, I said, stirring sugar I didn't need. We can catch up. Been too long since the retreat. Her hand froze mid-stir. You sure you're okay? You've been distant. Just tired, I said. Work stress. She nodded but didn't believe me, and she was right not to. That afternoon, while she showered, I transferred copies of Damon's files to a secure drive labeled Project Glass. Each folder was neat: Adrian, Zara, Trevor, Jonah, Elise. Everyone who'd sat around that fire. Every one of them had something to lose. I didn't want violence. I wanted reflection, the kind that hits in quiet rooms when doors close. At dinner, she talked about deadlines and clients, her voice smooth, her eyes steady. You're really quiet lately, she said again. I'm thinking, I said. About what? Balance, I lied. After dishes, she leaned over and kissed my cheek. You worry too much, Miles. You always have. Maybe not enough, I murmured. She went upstairs to work, and I sat with Damon's folder open on my laptop. Adrian's company was circling the drain. Zara's credit card history showed hotel bookings, 2 different names, same address. Trevor had 2 separate gym memberships for networking. Jonah's expense report hinted at side deals. Elise had forged invoices for charity funds. It was a small ecosystem of dishonesty, and Lila had built her nest right in the center. Sunday, she left for brunch with Zara. Don't wait up, she called. The moment the door closed, I called Damon. How fast can you trace a meeting location? 10 minutes. Do it. He pinged me back at 11:23 a.m. They're not at brunch. They're at the Crescent Hotel. Of course they are, I said. By 1 p.m., she returned smelling like perfume that wasn't hers. It was great, she said too quickly. Zara needed to vent, Trevor's being impossible. Glad you were there for her, I said. She smiled, relieved. You're the best you know that. Sometimes. That night, she fell asleep on the couch with her laptop half open. I eased it aside, careful not to wake her. The screen glowed on a chat window, an unread message from Adrian, tomorrow night, same place. Can't stop thinking about you. I took a photo, closed it, and stood for a long time in the dark. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was a plan, a partnership, a business built on betrayal. At 2 a.m., I texted Damon again, "Get me everything. I'm done waiting." His reply came instantly, understood. When I finally lay down beside her, she shifted, murmuring my name in her sleep. For a heartbeat, I almost believed it was real. Then I remembered the hotel receipts, the videos, the kiss behind the pines. I closed my eyes and saw firelight flicker on her face again, only this time I wasn't walking away. I was walking back with matches. By Wednesday, Damon's next report landed in my inbox. Subject line, pattern complete. It wasn't long, just bullet points and attachments, but it hit like a hammer. Hotel logs, call histories, screenshots, and one image that ended any doubt. Adrian and Lila together laughing over breakfast, same outfits as the work trip she'd posted about 2 days earlier. I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. Then I hit save. That night over dinner, I said casually, Adrian texted me. "Wants to grab a beer Friday. You mind?" She hesitated mid-bite. Adrian. "Yeah." Figured it's been a while since the camping trip. Her fork clinked softly against the plate. "Sure," she said too quickly. "You two should talk." "Oh, I plan to." Friday came and I met Adrian at Murphy's Tavern, a dim place that smelled like old wood and cheap whiskey. He was already there pretending to be relaxed. "Miles, man, good to see you." I sat down, ordered a beer. "So how's the startup?" He grimaced. "Rough patch, investors getting jittery, but we'll bounce back." I took a sip. "Good to hear." He looked uneasy, like someone walking through fog that might hide cliffs. "Lila said you've been stressed." "Everything okay between you two?" "Fine," I said. "We talk, we work, we adapt." He nodded, forcing a smile. "That's good. You've got something solid there." "Yeah," I said, leaning forward, lowering my voice. "That's what I thought, until I saw you kiss her." The blood drained from his face. "What?" "In the woods, 10 feet from where I was standing." He froze. I watched him flounder, searching for the least bad lie. "It's not what you think. I think my fiancé was cheating with my best friend. So tell me, Adrian, what's the better version?" He rubbed his forehead, eyes darting everywhere but at me. "We didn't plan it, Miles. It just happened. You know how she is." "Don't," I said quietly. "Don't shift it to her. You had a choice." He sighed. "She told me you'd been distant, that she felt trapped." "Trapped," I laughed once low. "In what stability?" "She said you stopped seeing her. Not physically, just seeing her." I leaned back. "You sound rehearsed." "It's the truth." "No. It's the version she fed you to make you feel like the hero." I finished my beer, set it down gently. "Tell me, Adrian, does she talk about our mortgage? The bills? My father's health?" "No, she talks about herself. And you believe it because it makes you feel needed." His lips parted, but no words came out. "You think she loves you?" I asked. He nodded after a long silence. "Then you'll love this." I pulled a folder from my jacket, dropped it on the table. Inside, bank statements, screenshots, messages from the private account evidence Damon had compiled. She's been selling content online for months, and you're in the last few uploads. He opened the folder, saw the photos, and went pale. "Jesus. Yeah. So whatever fantasy you built in your head about love and rescue, erase it. You're just another customer with better lighting." He pushed the folder away. "You're enjoying this." "Not yet," I said, "but I will." I stood. "Here's what happens next. You delete her number block. Her accounts pretend she never existed. If you don't, I'll make sure every investor you've ever met gets that folder." His voice cracked. "You'd ruin me." "You already helped ruin me," I said evenly. "I'm just leveling the field." Then I left him sitting there staring at the evidence, a man realizing the weapon he thought he owned had turned on him. When I got home, Lila was waiting in the living room, perched on the couch like a student caught cheating. "How was your night?" "Enlightening." She crossed her legs, forcing calm. "Adrian told me you met. He said you were angry." I asked, sitting across from her. "Because I thought we had an understanding." She blinked. "What understanding?" "That we'd stop pretending. Miles, whatever Adrian told you, it's true," I cut in. "And incomplete. You've been lying to me for months. The hotels, the calls, the account, the late-night freelance projects." Her face drained of color. "You've been spying on me. I've been trying to figure out when my fiancée disappeared and this stranger took her place." Tears welled up. "It's not like that. I was lonely. You work all the time, you barely look at me anymore." Adrian listened. "Adrian used you," I said, "and you let him." She stood up suddenly, voice cracking. "I made mistakes, but you made me feel invisible." "That's your defense," I said, "that I didn't worship you enough." Her shoulders sagged. "You don't understand. When I started the online stuff, it wasn't about cheating. It was about control, about feeling powerful again." "Powerful," I repeated, "by lying, by selling pieces of yourself to strangers. I needed to feel alive." "And did it work?" I asked quietly. "Do you feel alive now?" She covered her face, crying hard. "I never meant to hurt you." "You didn't mean it," I said. "You just did it anyway." Silence stretched between us until even the refrigerator hum sounded loud. Finally, I said, "You have two choices. End it. Delete everything, or leave." She looked up, eyes red. "That's it. That's it. You're giving up on us." "No," I said. "You did that at the campfire." She stared for a moment, then turned and walked upstairs. Drawers opened, a suitcase thudded on the bed. When she came down, she was holding her keys and her laptop bag. "I'll stay with Zara for a few days." "Good idea," I said. "Give her my regards." She paused at the door. "I did love you, Miles." "In your way," I said. "But your way's not good enough anymore." The door closed softly, but the echo lingered. I sat alone in the quiet house, the air heavy with burnt trust and perfume residue. I poured a drink called Damon. "She's gone," I said. "For good?" he asked. "We'll see, but it's time to move on the others. You really want to take all of them down." I looked around the living room, photos of fake smiles, vacations, built on credit friendships, built on lies. They all sat there and laughed while she humiliated me, I said. They thought I wouldn't do anything. "And now?" "Now," I said, my voice steady, "they're going to find out who they were laughing at." Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance like the sound of something waking up. Saturday morning came cold and colorless, the kind of quiet where you can hear your own pulse. Lila was gone, and for the first time in 8 years, the house didn't smell like her perfume or coffee brewing before sunrise. Only dust and silence. Damon called just as I finished my second cup. "You want to start with Zara or Trevor?" "Zara," I said. "She's the one who taught Lila how to lie." Zara lived in a downtown complex where everything smelled like lavender and overpriced candles. I didn't need to break in the front desk, believed anything said with confidence and a ring on your finger. Picking up a few of my fiancé's things, I told the receptionist. She smiled and handed me a guest pass. At 6:40 p.m., Zara walked into the lobby wearing heels too tall for real life. The moment she saw me, her smile cracked. "Miles, what are you doing here?" "Waiting for you," I said. "We need to talk." She hesitated, scanning for exits. "Lila said you two were having issues." "Funny," I said. "You helped create most of them." "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do." I pulled out my phone, opened screenshots Damon had gathered, texts, messages, Zara's name highlighted. "He'll never know if you're smart. Life's too short to stay stuck. I'll cover for you if you need an alibi." Her face went pale. How did you get those?" "I'm very motivated," I said, "and I have help. You can't just spy on people." I tilted my head. Strange coming from someone who helped my fiancé cheat on me. "I didn't help. She was unhappy. I told her to do what made her feel alive. You told her to destroy her life because you were bored with yours." Her mouth opened closed. "That's not fair." "No, it's not. But neither is encouraging someone to throw away 8 years of marriage for a fling." Zara's voice cracked. "You don't understand what she was going through." "Then explain it," I said, stepping closer. "Explain how lying, sneaking around, and creating fake accounts helped her. Or maybe this isn't about her. Maybe you wanted a front row seat to the chaos." Her composure broke. "You're insane." "Maybe," I said, showing her another file. But I'm an insane man who knows your boyfriend Trevor has been sleeping with his co-worker Jennifer from the marketing team. 2 months same hotel chain you booked for Lila. She blinked. That's a lie. I have credit card records, call logs, and photos. Would you like me to email them to you? Zara's jaw trembled. Why are you doing this? Because you helped ruin my marriage, and now I'm returning the favor. She took a step back. What do you want? Tell Lila you made a mistake. Tell her Adrian isn't worth it. And then stay out of it. You ever text her again about me, I send everything to Trevor and your HR department, since you also spent company money on those hotels. You wouldn't. Try me. Her eyes filled with tears. But I just turned and walked away. The receptionist smiled as I passed the desk. Find what you needed. More than enough, I said. Outside, the wind had picked up. I didn't feel triumphant, just steady, like something mechanical had clicked into place. Halfway to the truck, my phone buzzed. Lila, what did you say to Zara? She's hysterical. I texted back I had a conversation about friendship. She replied instantly, you threatened her. I educated her, I wrote. There's a difference. Miles, this has to stop. It stops when the truth's done talking. No answer, just silence. Damon called later that night. So Zara's out. Next target. Trevor, I said. He watched the whole thing and laughed. Trevor worked at a high-end marketing agency downtown. I waited in the parking garage after hours leaning against his black SUV. When he walked up whistling, I said, Evening, Trevor. He jumped, nearly dropping his keys. Miles, hey man, what's going on? Thought we should chat about loyalty. He frowned. Look, if this is about Lila, I don't... Jennifer Martinez, I interrupted. Trainer at Elite Fitness. 26. Divorced. Apartment on Riverside. Familiar. His smile vanished. How do you... Hotel room last Thursday. 2 dinners at the same place you took Zara for her birthday. Credit card receipts match. He went pale. You've been spying on me, too. Just evening the odds, I said. You sat at that campfire, watched my fiancé flirt with Adrian, and thought it was entertainment. But the thing is, Trevor, you were doing the same thing to Zara the whole time. That's different, he said weakly. Sure, I said. Because you're the one doing it. He clenched his fists. You're crossing lines, man. So did you. Here's what happens next. You tell Zara the truth. Every detail. If you don't, I will. You can't blackmail me. I said calmly, and I already have the message drafted. I even attached screenshots of your gym sessions with Jennifer. Zara will appreciate the honesty. He stepped closer, jaw tight. You're crazy. Maybe I said smiling, but you're a liar, and today crazy wins. I walked past him, left him standing there staring at his car like it might explode. That night, 2 messages hit my phone almost back to back. Zara, I hope you're happy. Trevor and I are done. Trevor, you're a monster. I typed the same reply to both actions have consequences. Then I turned my phone face down and poured a drink. For the first time since the campfire, I felt something close to balance. Not peace, just alignment. 2 down, 4 to go. When Damon called the next morning, his tone was lighter. You're enjoying this more than you should. I'm not enjoying it, I said. I'm finishing it. He paused. You know this road doesn't end with satisfaction, right? I'm not after satisfaction, I said. I'm after symmetry. He exhaled. Who's next? Jonah and Elise. They watched and stayed silent. Damon laughed softly. You're cleaning house. Not house, I said, history. When I hung up, I looked around the kitchen. The counters gleamed. The dining table was empty except for my phone, a folder, and the growing list I'd started weeks ago. Beside each name was a single word. Motive. Weakness. Consequence. Zara's line was already checked off. Trevor's too. I stared at the remaining names until the ink blurred, then wrote one more underlined word at the bottom, justice. I capped the pen and sat back. The war wasn't over yet, but for the first time I knew exactly how to win it. Sunday morning arrived cold and brutally clear sunlight pouring through the blinds like interrogation. For the first time in 8 years, the house smelled like nothing, no coffee, no perfume, just emptiness. I stood there with a cup of black coffee staring out the window and realized silence could sound heavier than thunder. Damon called right at 9. Ready for round 3, he asked. I didn't answer right away. The steam from my cup swirled into the air like smoke from a slow fire. Jonah and Elise, I said finally. They think keeping quiet means being innocent. Damon chuckled. Silence always leaves footprints. Sending you the files. I refreshed my inbox. 2 names. 2 histories of dirt buried under polished smiles. Elise, beloved volunteer accountant for a local children's charity, had been skimming donations for months. Jonah site foreman, self-proclaimed straight shooter, had been pocketing kickbacks from city bids. It seemed betrayal had its own ecosystem, and every one of them had fed off me while pretending to toast friendship. By noon, I was parked outside Jonah's construction site. The half-built office tower rose above the street metal beams cutting the sky. I found him inside a trailer, hunched over blueprints, coffee gone cold beside him. "Miles," he said when he looked up. "Didn't expect you here." "Yeah," I said, shutting the door behind me. "You got a minute?" He frowned. "What's this about?" "That camping trip," I said. "You remember the night everyone watched my fiancée kiss our friend?" His expression tightened. "Look, that was awkward for everyone, man. I didn't think it was my place to say anything." "Not your place," I repeated, nodding. "You know what else isn't your place, bribing a city official." His face went from tan to paper white in an instant. "What did you just say?" I slid the folder onto the desk. Inside, emails, receipts, payment trails, names of people he didn't want spoken aloud. "You've been buying contracts through kickbacks labeled as consulting fees," I said calmly. "You and your boss. You think the city won't notice forever?" He stared at the papers, throat working like he was trying to swallow sand. "Where did you get this?" "Let's just say I hired someone good at digging." "You're out of line, Miles." "You're out of luck," I replied. "Here's the deal. Stay away from Lila and Adrian. Don't take their side. Don't mention me." "You do. And this folder goes to the press." "You wouldn't," he whispered. "Try me." I turned to leave. Behind me, his voice cracked. "You've lost it." "No," I said, stepping outside into the wind. I finally found it. Next was Elise. She was easy to find. Same cafe, same window seat, same pretended innocence. She smiled when she saw me approach, but the smile froze halfway. "Miles," she said. "You look tired." "You look nervous," I said, sitting down. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About the money you stole." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. 12,000, I continued. "Little by little over 8 months. You thought nobody would notice because you're the honest one." She whispered, "That's not true. You forged receipts, Elise. Wrote yourself checks under fake expense codes. I have everything right here." I tapped the folder. "You watched my life implode and said nothing. Now you know how it feels to have your world balanced on a single decision." Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. "Please don't report me. I'll pay it back." "I don't want your money," I said. "I want your silence. Resign from the charity. Recommend a full audit. Stay away from Lila and Adrian. That's it." "You've changed," she said. "No," I said quietly. "I just stopped confusing decency with weakness." When I walked out, she was crying into her coffee, her reflection rippling in the window, like guilt trying to find its shape. That night, Damon called again. "You burned 4 bridges this week. How's it feel?" "Like I'm cleaning rust off a blade," I said. "Painful but necessary." He sighed. "You know this doesn't end how you think it will. It ends when they understand. Understand what that betrayal has a cost." The next morning, the news hit. City contractor under investigation for corruption. Jonah's face flashed across the local channel, flanked by reporters. I hadn't leaked it, but I didn't need to. Once you light a fire, it finds its own air. I watched it over breakfast, a dull ache blooming somewhere between satisfaction and emptiness. At noon, I visited Damon. His place smelled like smoke and printer ink. "You still got everything on Lila and Adrian?" I asked. "Every file," he said. "You really gonna use it?" "Not yet," I said. "First, I want to see how fast the rest crumble. You've turned into something, Miles. I just don't know what yet. Something awake," I said, finishing my drink. That night, the sky cracked open with rain. When I got home, her car was in the driveway. Lila was back. She stood in the doorway like she belonged there, suitcase by her leg, eyes wet but rehearsed. "We need to talk," she said. "You shouldn't be here." "I ended it with Adrian," she said quickly. "I deleted everything. I made mistakes, but I want to fix them." I stared at her. "You can't unburn what's ash. Miles, please," she said. "I love you." "No," I said. "You love being forgiven." She flinched, tears spilling again. "You're not the man I married. You killed that man," I said. "Now you're meeting what's left." She whispered, "What are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes." I opened the door. "You should go." She hesitated, then picked up her suitcase. "I did love you, Miles. Then you should have fought for me when it mattered." She left without another word. The rain swallowed her footsteps. I locked the door, sat down, and poured myself a drink. Damon texted 20 minutes later. "You good?" I typed back, "almost. Tomorrow's the real cleanup." He replied with a single word: "Careful." I looked around the empty living room. The walls echoed with the ghosts of laughter that once felt real. Every picture frame now lay face down on the floor. I reached for the last one, our wedding photo. Her smile had always looked like sunlight. I turned it over glass, face first against the wood. For a long time, I just sat there listening to the storm outside, the rhythmic drumming of rain against glass, the sound of endings sealing themselves. When I finally stood, I walked to my desk, opened Damon's final file labeled Heart Coal Final. Inside were neatly organized folders: Adrian's financial collapse, Lila's deleted account archives, screenshots, timestamps, everything I'd need to end it completely. My reflection stared back from the laptop screen, eyes darker, sharper, unrecognizable. "Tomorrow," I whispered. "Tomorrow we finish this." The next morning came with the kind of stillness that only happens before a storm. My phone buzzed nonstop. Damon checking in, lawyers confirming papers, and one last message from Lila. "My parents invited you to Thanksgiving dinner. Please come. For the kids." I stared at that text for a long minute, thumb hovering over delete. She was desperate to make it look normal again, to gather her family around the illusion that everything was fine. But the truth was, Thanksgiving had always been her theater, and this year it was going to be her stage of exposure. I called Damon. "You ready for the big show?" he asked, voice grimly amused. "She invited me," I said. "Perfect time to end the performance." "You sure about this, Miles?" "I've never been surer." By evening, the streets were lined with cars and windows glowed warm with the kind of comfort I hadn't felt in years. I parked across from her parents' place and just sat there for a while, watching the shadows of people move behind the curtains. Lila's world looked picture perfect, her dad carving the turkey, her mom setting the table, cousins laughing. A holiday postcard built on lies. When I finally walked in, the warmth hit me like smoke, smiling faces, hugs I didn't deserve anymore, and the faint, artificial scent of cinnamon candles. Lila looked radiant, almost too radiant in that way people do when they're terrified of losing control. She greeted me like nothing had happened, her voice sugary and fragile. "Miles, I'm so glad you made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, forcing a smile. We sat. Dinner began. The small talk floated across the table like background noise work vacations, the kids. I played along, quiet, patient. Across from me, Lila laughed too loudly, stealing glances to see if I was smiling. Her father made a toast about gratitude, family, and enduring love. I almost laughed. Then her aunt asked, "So how are you two doing?" "You look happier than ever." That was the cue. I set down my fork and said calmly, "Everything's fine except for the affair Lila's been having." The room went silent. It was the kind of silence you could feel in your bones, the kind that swallows the air. Her cousin's laughter died mid-breath. Someone dropped a fork. Lila's head snapped toward me, eyes wide. "Miles!" she hissed. "Stop." Her aunt blinked. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" I looked around the table. "You heard me. Lila's been cheating on me for months. I have proof." Gasps. Whispers. Lila's mother covered her mouth. "That's not true," Lila said, her voice cracking. He's making this up. I leaned back in my chair, calm as stone. Really? Then maybe everyone here should check their phones. I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. "AirDrop's on right, I just sent you all something." One by one, the family's phones lit up. Screens opened to the same file photos, videos the private investigator's evidence. Lila's laughter frozen in betrayal. A man's car. A beach. A moment that should never have existed. Her father was the first to speak. "Lila, what is this?" she stammered. "Dad, it's not what it looks like." "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I said. I stayed quiet for a long time. Too long. But if she wanted an audience, this seemed like the right place. Lila stood up shaking. "You humiliated me in front of my family." I met her gaze. "No, Lila, you did that yourself. I just turned on the lights." Her mother began to cry. Her father looked ready to explode. The whispers grew a storm of disbelief and shame. Some people looked at me with pity, others with horror. I didn't care. This wasn't for them. This was for balance. Lila grabbed her bag and rushed out sobbing. 2 relatives followed, shouting her name. I sat there staring at my untouched plate, the smell of roasted turkey suddenly sickening. Her father spoke again, voice trembling. "Why didn't you come to us sooner?" "Because I needed you to see it for yourselves," I said. "Because she didn't just betray me, she betrayed all of you too." Then I stood, thanked them for dinner, and walked out into the cold night. The sky had started to snow. Tiny white flakes falling slow like the ashes of something burned beyond repair. When I got home, the house felt different, emptier but lighter. I poured a drink and sat by the window watching the snow gather on the steps. My phone buzzed again. "Lila. How could you in front of them me? You asked me to come. I did. Lila. You destroyed me. Me. No. You destroyed yourself. I just stopped covering for you." She didn't reply. The next day I called my lawyer. "File it," I said. "I'm done." By that evening, the papers were ready. The process was clean, efficient, almost surgical. No yelling, no apologies, just signatures and silence. 2 days later, Damon called. "How'd it go?" "Exactly as planned," I said. He hesitated. "You sound empty." "I am," I said simply. "But emptiness is better than pretending." A week passed. Then 2. News spread through her family like a storm. Lila was avoiding everyone, ashamed to show her face. Her father refused to take her calls. Her mother, heartbroken, sent me a text. I don't know what happened to her. "I'm sorry, Miles. You didn't deserve this." I thanked her and said nothing more. It was over, legally, emotionally, morally, or so I thought. One evening, just before midnight, I heard a knock at the door. Slow, hesitant. When I opened it, she was there, hair damp from rain, eyes hollow, wearing the same coat from that Thanksgiving night. "You got what you wanted," she said softly. "No," I said. "I got what I needed." Her voice trembled. "You're not the same man I married." "You're right," I said. "The man you married trusted too easily." She looked around the house at the bare walls, at the empty shelves. "So what now?" "Now," I said, "I rebuild, alone." She nodded once, tears tracing her face. "I hope someday you forgive me." "Maybe," I said, "but not today." When she left, I watched from the window as her taillights faded down the street. The snow had started again, soft and relentless, covering the driveway like a clean slate. I sat down at my desk, opened Damon's last message, one simple line. "Sometimes the truth sets you free, but first it burns everything you love." He was right. The truth had burned everything. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the fire anymore. Winter deepened fast. By mid-December, the town looked like a postcard. White roofs, glowing windows, families wrapped in warmth and laughter. I watched it all from the distance of my own solitude, coffee gone cold in my hand, a quiet observer of lives still intact. The divorce had been finalized a week earlier. My lawyer called it a clean break, though there's nothing clean about cutting away half your history. Lila kept the house as expected. I didn't fight for it. I just took my truck a few boxes, and the one thing I hadn't lost my peace. The new apartment was small but honest. 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for the kids when they stayed over. No family photos, no hollow apologies framed on walls. just the hum of the heater, the sound of the city beyond the window, and the quiet rhythm of starting over. Damon came by that first weekend with takeout and cheap whiskey. "You did it," he said, slumping into the armchair. "You burned it all down." "Sometimes you have to," I replied. "It's the only way to see what's real." He studied me. "You think it was worth it?" I took a sip before answering. "Yes. She built a world of lies. I just turned on the lights." He nodded slowly. "Still, revenge has a way of sticking to you like smoke, even after the fire's gone." I smiled faintly. "Smoke reminds you the fire was real." He left not long after. I stayed up late, scrolling through old messages on my phone. Most were from people who'd chosen sides during the chaos. Some defended her, others whispered congratulations for my strength. I deleted them all. Strength wasn't what this was. It was survival. The next day, I took the kids to a small diner downtown. It was their first weekend with me since the split. They were quiet at first, watching me like I might break. "You okay, Dad?" my son finally asked. "I'm good," I said. "Better than before." My daughter tilted her head. "Mom says you're mad at her." I paused, setting down my fork. "No," I said carefully, "I'm just done being hurt." They both nodded as if that made sense to them. We finished breakfast, laughing about old stories and spilled syrup. For a few precious hours, life felt normal again. Not the same normal as before, the fragile illusion of it, but something sturdier, real. That night, after they'd gone back to Lila's, I sat at my desk and opened the last file Damon had sent, a digital folder marked Closure. Inside were photos from the Thanksgiving dinner screenshots people had secretly taken when everything exploded. My face calm, hers frozen mid-denial the moment everything fell apart, preserved like evidence of truth. I stared at it for a long time, then deleted it all. Revenge had served its purpose. Proof wasn't necessary anymore. I didn't need to remind myself who she was or what I'd lost. The best revenge now was quiet. Real quiet. The kind that came when there was no more explaining, no more defending, no more pretending. A week later, Damon called again. Heard she's been avoiding everyone he said. Her parents' friends, even Adrian. Apparently, they broke up after she tried showing up at his place unannounced and ran into his wife. "Fitting," I said. "She deserves it," he muttered. "Still crazy how fast the mighty fall." "She wasn't mighty," I said. "She just had an audience." After the call, I went out for a drive. Snow fell in soft ribbons across the windshield, blurring the lights of passing cars. I ended up near the old house without meaning to. The windows were dark except for one faint glow upstairs. Her light. I parked across the street and sat there, remembering every argument, every small betrayal I'd ignored because I wanted to believe love could fix anything. It couldn't. Some things need endings. I rolled down the window, breathed in the sharp winter air, and whispered into the night, "You got what you wanted, Lila. Now live with it." Then I drove away. Weeks passed. I stopped counting. Work filled the hours, the gym filled the silence, and on good days, the laughter of my kids filled everything else. I started running again miles before sunrise, the kind of runs that leave you breathless but alive. Damon said I looked lighter. I didn't tell him that I'd started sleeping through the night again, that for the first time in years I didn't wake up expecting a fight. Sometimes healing doesn't come with closure. It comes when you finally stop rehearsing pain. One evening, I found an envelope in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a short letter in familiar handwriting. "Miles, I know I have no right to ask for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, not because you exposed me, but because you were right. I was selfish, weak, and blind. I lost everything that mattered. I hope someday you find peace. You deserve it more than I ever did. Lila." I read it once, then again, and set it aside. I didn't tear it up. I didn't respond. I just left it in the drawer. Some apologies belong to the past. Spring crept in quietly after that. The snow melted, the air softened, and one morning I realized I hadn't thought about her in days. That was the moment I knew it was really over. I started going to church again, not for faith, but for quiet. The pastor spoke about forgiveness, about letting go of vengeance before it poisons what's left of your soul. I sat in the back listening, wondering if he could see through me. When the service ended, I stayed behind a while just watching the stained glass flicker in the sunlight. Forgiveness didn't feel like surrender anymore. It felt like freedom. Later that week, Damon and I met for coffee. He studied me for a long moment before smiling. "You look different," he said. "I feel different," I said. He leaned back. "So what now?" "Now," I said, "I build something that can't be taken." He nodded, raising his cup. "To rebuilding." I smiled. "To peace." That night, I sat by my window again. The same view I'd stared at months ago when everything was burning. The city lights shimmered in the dark, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the world was happening without me. The phone buzzed. A message from my daughter, "Good night, Dad." "Love you," I replied. "Love you too, kiddo, always." Then I turned off the lights, closed the laptop, and sat in the quiet. Not the heavy kind anymore, the kind that hums softly like a promise kept. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't haunted. I was free. And sometimes that's the only revenge that really matters. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.